to use their heft and weight to pressure their suppliers.
I think that's a great call. One thing that Chuck Robbins, CEO of CSCO, said last night was that he realized this is going to be a tough quarter. This is going to be the quarter where supply chain people did their absolute best. He's now saying it's not necessarily the trough, but he was saying 2022 could be a trouble to get chips. And last night he really said just 2021. I cannot believe how bold Farley was. Just so bold.
Are you changing the subject from Cisco already?
What?
You're changing the subject from Cisco already?
Well, they both talked about supply chain problems. And Farley was talking about this as being the trough. So this is quite an optimistic view. David, if you can get the trough for the chip shortage, and a lot of that is that the plant in Japan that went back online,
right,
then you're going to see much better numbers from some of the companies where numbers were taken down, believing that there would be a chip shortage that would last all year.
Yeah, extended perhaps even into next year.
Right, but Chuck didn't say that last night.
You kind of have indicated as well that you thought the bottom was coming.
I think they're troughing, and I felt that to some degree because the companies, Carl, the companies themselves are not static. We'll have Applied Materials coming up, but you're going to hear that they'll be able to produce enough machines that will therefore make enough chips. I think the shortage is coming to an end this quarter.
Wow. And in light of what we've already talked about the last few days with lumber, Jim, oil is on track for the worst week since March, down 4%. We're back into the low 60s. I assume you think that's a good thing, right? That some of these squeezes are going to end up potentially proving Powell right.
I don't think it's a good thing. I think it's a great thing, Carl. I think the collapse in lumber indicates exactly how thinly traded that market was. It's still not where the home builders wanted, obviously, but it did impact, believe it or not, Home Depot's earnings. I do see a lot of different, it's just a trickle, but each day, copper a little bit weaker. Now, I happen to have Dr. Mark Bristow on tonight. Formerly of Randgold, David, now Barrick.
Yes.
They are producing full out copper, which is going, David, copper is a byproduct of gold. So I think copper can come down. I don't think the Freeport people, you interviewed Freeport.
Yes, we had Richard Eckerson on with us a couple of weeks ago at this point. Well, he was very enthusiastic.
Well, I'd like to know if he's less enthusiastic.
I don't know. I haven't talked to him.
A 10% decline.
There has been a 10% decline, although longer term, it wasn't super cycle they're talking about. It was just consistent demand as a result of the additional demand from EV. Copper used so often in the batteries, for example.
No, there has been no substitute. And even, your buddy.
Which buddy? Oh, don't even start. Really?
Yes.
My buddy. The man you've interviewed 20 times.
Yes.
Okay. And I interviewed once. Got it. QuantumScape is what he's talking about.
We're talking about QuantumScape.
Yeah, there it is.
QuantumScape indicates that there is no good substitute yet for copper. And that's a problem, David, because Jagdeep Singh, who's a very thoughtful man, is saying, look, there's just a lot of copper being used. So that's the one flaw in the ointment, Carl, is that there's no substitute for copper. I talked to the fourth largest waste company last night. People are going Carl, they're going back to landfills and pick out the copper. That was something that happened during the last peak in copper. That's why copper's so vulnerable. You've got Freeport expanding, you've got the gold companies expanding, and you got the copper pickers going to the landfills. So I think there's a developing top in copper despite even.